Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue our discussion. Can we? Should we?
Yes, doctor.
Sure, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Okay, I'm trying to get into perspective the idea of qualitative versus quantitative. Actually, I always would like to, advise. Normally, I advise the student not thinking of this thing earlier. Just get a topic and then come out with a lot of questions. A lot of questions, mean natural question, and also the one researchable, which are researchable. Because the question themselves will determine whether you are doing qualitative or you are doing quantitative or you are doing mixed methods. So meaning that in the simplest form is if you have 6 questions or 8 questions, you have 2 qualitative and you have the rest you have quantitative. That one is can also be considered as mixed method research. Even though actually the real mixed method research is, for example, research question. I want to answer the question whether what type of communication that the leaders use. For example, I use quantitative. I give questionnaire, and then I would also do interview. That's the ideal. That's the ideal. Maybe you're doing that for your research question 1 or 2, partly. Partly. Not all the question you need to do both methods to address the question. You know what I'm saying? So meaning I repeat again. Okay, meaning that we don't do the decision earlier. We do the decision after we have the research question. Look at the issues, and then you look at those questions from the back of your mind. As a practitioner, you have a lot of questions already. And then you have the question based on the research findings, which is not really clear, what we call as the gap from the previous research. So we have a lot of list of questions, maybe 15, maybe 20. And then we discuss with our supervisors to fit in our thesis, the one which are researchable. Okay, the idea of mixed method is, the ideal is for example, for research question 1, we need to have both methods. You do interview, you do questionnaire. That's the ideal. Some examiner might be really fussy into that, but it's okay. You can deal with them. You can bargain. For example, for certain research question, maybe I need to do both methodology. Research question 1 or 3 maybe, but it doesn't have to be all. There's a lot of things. So mixed method research, whether it's sequential, explanatory, sequential, exploratory, you will read in Creswell a lot about this one. I don't want to go really deep, but the idea is whether you do qualitative first or you do quantitative first. So if you do the quantitative first, it is called explanatory. If you do the qualitative first, it will be exploratory. So explain and explore. So the difference is between the two. You do quantitative first, you will be explain. If you do qualitative first, you will be explore. So those are the things which you can you can read from Creswell in 2013. Maybe you can get the answers. But what I'm saying is the qualitative and versus quantitative argument, is not really that important, because once you come across the question, already this question is how and why. Of course, it is qualitative, and this question is what. Of course, it is quantitative, or maybe sometimes it can be also qualitative. So meaning that the idea is we don't decide whether we are qualitative or we are quantitative or we are mixed. The data that we need to answer the research question will determine the design, the design, whether it is qualitative or quantitative or mixed mode. But anyway, I just want to highlight one thing which is in my slide. Qualitative may involve limited numbers, even though we understand that quantitative involve a lot of number. That's a norm. We always come across with quantitative research with main percentage, multiple regression, factor analysis, whatever. So we involve a lot of numbers. So more confirmatory in nature because we kind of have the questions prior just to confirm, what type of leadership, what type of communication style, those are the things. But I don't know, how do you see it? But some people might see the thing with the qualitative is easy. I don't think so. I don't think the qualitative is easy because it doesn't have numbers. That's what I'm trying to stress on. If you are really good in narrative, for example, if somebody asks you, okay, how was your vacation? How was Langkawi, for example, one of the island in Malaysia, right? And then you can say a lot of things. Maybe you are fit. That's the easiest way. One step easier. I mean, to identify yourself. Maybe you are quali or quantity guy. But I'm against the idea that qualitative per se or qualitative only will make your life easily in terms of defending a proposal and defending your bye-bye, If you're doing fully qualitative because I don't like numbers, I do qualitative, then you will be fully qualitative, and then you will be screwed by the intents of the data, the depth of the data, and then how you interact with the data. A lot of things, I see people doing qualitative, full research in qualitative is not up to the standard that we expect. Examiner always question about maybe the saturated data is not there. The way we analyze it, using thematic, is it using what kind of, is it we are using the software. They have a lot of expectation. Okay, so meaning that by naturally, if you have the question, you will be missed. That's my thinking. When you have the questions, a list of questions, you will, the best question is select from the list will also put you in the mix method. So meaning that you have quantity, you have qualitative. Discuss with supervisor and then make sure that those questions are the researchable one, valuable, and then give new knowledge for the field, and then you will be fine. Okay, for the design that we have, I think for quantitative, because today is supposedly I have to talk about quantitative. The three important design is descriptive, correlational, and experimental. Okay, in our faculty, we don't have a lot of experimental, so to speak. We don't have a lot, except from some field like a psychology, maybe multimedia, doing like using some software to intervene some some problem. Maybe you have, in my field, I don't have a lot of experimental. If you are using, you are doing like Mr. J, you are doing management, right, and leadership, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're doing like leadership, my field.
No, I'm doing not leadership, management and administration.
Yeah. Management administration, and then also you can do leadership in this degree program, right? So what I'm saying is experimental. We don't come across a big chunk, a big considerable amount of research doing the experimental. Because why? Because maybe one of the factors is that it's really hard to manipulate the situation. For example, if you are doing principal communication style, right, and then you don't have the luxury to to manipulate, exploit the way that he or she communicate with the staff. You know what I'm saying? So meaning that we cannot implement the most important part in experimental research is manipulating the variable, the independent variable. So meaning you want to give treatment, for example, you want to give cause, you have to change the way that they behave. Is not chosen way of doing research by our students. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying we don't have a lot. Correlation, we have a lot. Descriptive, of course, we have a lot of thesis doing the descriptive. Whatever you do, make it real and make it natural, and then putting in the both qualitative and quantitative question naturally, really important question that we as a researcher need to answer based on the topic. You cannot say I exclude this question because I don't want to be qualitative. I just want to do quantitative only quantitative. I don't think that's the way we pick up our design, you know. So okay, bear in mind, this is maybe one of the things that you will face. The one I was saying, if you are doing mixed method, some examiners, they're really fussy in terms of the way you do the research should be really mixed. So for every question or for certain question, it has to be done in both methodologies. You know, so you have to go by interview, you have to go by observation, and then you have to also do like a survey questionnaires to answer one specific question. So bear in mind, this is the concern, and then you have to read about it. What does it mean by mixed method? Does it just kind of rojak, you know, rojak, salat rojak, you can have research question one is object descriptive, quantitative, and then question number 6 you have qualitative. That one is I can claim as mixed method research. That's the discussion. And also one of the things that I want to stress on when we do the mixed method is the integrating of data. That's the thing which is rarely found in the discussion in the thesis, because when you are doing mixed method research, okay, so your data will be both. So you have the quantitative data and then you have the qualitative data. But when it comes to the conclusion, you know, the conclusion of the, you're doing separately. You're doing like a rojak, you know, separately, meaning question 1 is quantitative, question 2 is qualitative. But when it comes to integrating the data, whether it is in the same research question or different research question, but you will bring the audience to the discussion chapter 5. So presumably the discussion will be able to integrate the findings in one section. Maybe not all section, maybe one section should be a kind of integration between the data. But most importantly, if you're doing both methodology in one research question, then the integration data is really a must thing that you have to focus on. So meaning that okay, integration of data. So meaning at the end of the day, chapter 5, you have the qualitative data, you have the quantitative data. So how I'm gonna make my conclusion? Because they are different, you know. Quantitative say differently, and qualitative say differently. The way they discuss is totally different. But now, and now you come with a framework of what you call as the framework, the new framework for principal communication. Okay, so meaning that the framework. Okay, I think Mr. J or maybe Fu or somebody else there. Maybe you always come across with the word kerangka or framework, right? Framework means the kerangka in Malay. So normally when we talk about kerangka as maybe the last research question, most supervisors say you don't have to do in chapter 4, you have to do in chapter 5, meaning that you don't use data, but you use your integrated thinking to kind of come out with one model or framework for the topic that you did your research on. So if it is chapter 5, then you have to integrate the data that you get from the research as a whole, presumably from the whole. So it's kind of hard. But if your framework is in chapter 4, and then you have data for your framework, example, you have the data from the software and so whatever data and integrated data that you have from the both qualitative and quantitative, maybe you do it chapter 4 based on the data. But based on thinking, you do it chapter 5. Maybe you don't get it today, but it's okay. But just bear in mind, if you're doing framework, you can have the to do it in chapter or discussing it, or maybe chapter 5.
Excuse me,
in both,
doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Doctor, my research is more towards mixed mode. So I am used, say when we do analysis and because both of my this is what I say in quantitative and also qualitative. When I mentioned
The
my
question role methodology.
is how we go about things, but input qualitative aspect will be from interviews conducted among parents and community, whereas quantitative will into the implementation of all this activities or this particular approach. So
Understood.
that is how it's coming.
Understood. But my question was, in one question, qualitative, question one,
Aspects because it
to answer one question. It has to be. It has to be answered by the data qualitative. Yeah. So and then also for some say you don't have to include that in 5. It's fine. So go to Creswell and look at the term concurrent is not integrated data. Concurrent in terms of the administration, do it simultaneously or do you do it one after another? You do the qualitative, so that's concurrent, right? But it refers to the of data, and not to the idea of the integration of data. So meaning that concurrent is more on the data collection. Integration of data is more on the so what we put in discussion for today. Is
I
okay. Maybe is the idea of
thank you, Doctor.
to prove the effects of certain variables to what we call as the dependent variable. In my field, as I said, it's hard. Not that we don't want to do it, but I don't see a lot. I see some in psychology, and then I see some in multimedia. I see some in teaching for curriculum, for example, but not in my field. But correlation design, I think, is very familiar with you guys. You guys are familiar with the correlation design. Basically, is to prove the statistical relationship between two or more variables, which happen statistically. It doesn't mean that it affects the so-called one of the variable affect the other variable. It's not that way. It's just to see the correlation, whether it is significant correlation, whether it is not a significant correlation, it is a positive correlation or it is a negative correlation. So if motivation increase, performance increase, then it is a positive correlation maybe. If it's motivation increase but performance decrease, it's a negative correlation signified by the negative values. If positive, signified by the positive values. So negative and positive values to tell whether it is negative or positive correlation. Okay. The other one is the one which is not really usual is the what we call it as a causal comparison design. So causal comparative design doesn't belong to correlation. It doesn't also belong to the doesn't also belong to the fact. Much sometimes you see as, oh, doctor, this is like for a normal correlation study. No, because the thing is we try to prove the effects. We're trying to bring the finding as independent variable affect the dependent variable, and then we are really sure based on the past data that we have collected from the respondent. Okay, Queen Bee syndrome, stress in workplace. Okay. You know the Queen Bee syndrome? Anybody knows? Jay? Queen Bee syndrome.
Never heard, doctor. First time.
Queen Bee syndrome is one of the research happened in the 1780s, I think, still going on, I think. Queen Bee syndrome is the syndrome where when the woman leader get to the higher hierarchy, and then this leader will evaluate critically the woman subordinates as compared to the counterparts, meaning that you will be more critical towards the female. If you are the female leader, they got appointed, they climb the hierarchy, and then they become somebody in the organization. But the way they perceive or value or evaluate the female workers are more critical as compared to the male. So meaning that they have problem with they will have problem.
Is it bias? Bias.
Yeah, that's one of the word we can use. But they have some explanation. If you read, they have some explanation why it happened. Into that discussion. But in Malaysia context, maybe they say if school context, you ask you want a male or female teachers, maybe you get the straight answers for them. But we don't want to go into that. So Queen Bee syndrome, for example, if you can manipulate, in this case you cannot manipulate. I think it's more as post factor rather than experimental. It's hard for a researcher like us, especially in our setting is higher education setting, not in the ministry, for example, to manipulate the way that the female manager or leaders, deal with the female workers in the workplace. Okay, vitamin C, of course, you can manipulate. You give a lot of vitamin C, and then you get healthy skin. This is maybe not in our field. This is like health, field. But the thing is, it can be experimental, and also it can be as post factor, both. Smoking and lung cancer. This is, of course, if you do it experimental, you are breaching the ethical. This is not ethical because maybe some organizations, some context, maybe they can use the prisoners, test some drugs, for example, on the prisoners and then come up with the result. So maybe that one is experimental, but as a student, maybe in the medical field, for example, if you're doing this, give a lot of cigarettes and then people smoke until they get lung cancer, it's very unethical. So it's post factor. Nagging, husband and wife, stressful spouse. So is this experimental or is this ex post factor? Ex post factor. But can you teach the husband and wife to nag? You can, right? If you're doing experiment and then you nag, you change the way they communicate. They have a lot of nagging in the conversation. Maybe you can do it. If you can do it. But easiest way is doing the ex post facto. Guess just to get some information. Your husband nag a lot, and then how many times, or on what topic, and then what reason, for example. And that one is more on ex post facto rather than experimental. Okay. What's that again? Okay, poor school leaders, low staff motivation. Okay, poor school leadership, poor school leadership, low staff motivation. This is my field. Okay, you have poor school leadership, and then because of that, you have low staff motivation. So this is Jay. This is your area, Jay. Let me know.
Yep.
What's the answer? Experimental or ex post factor? How are you gonna do it?
More of
yeah. Why it's not experimental? You don't want to do it experimental? It's hard, right? It's very hard, right?
Yeah.
Unless they pretend, if they are already a good leader and then they pretend to be bad leader, then what kind of?
Correct. not possible.
Or the other way, not possible.
The whole organization.
Faking,
It's very
faking.
sometimes it's kind of annoying really, and people will not take it. The Kementerian, we have a problem difficulty in giving you the approval in terms of doing the research, because that if you are doing in school setting, for example, you need to have the approval from the EPRD, the ministry, and also if you're doing a public school, if you're doing public school, right, and not private school, right? Your
Public university.
higher education. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you do it to whatever university, the private university, also you need to have the approval. Permission, approval from to conduct the research, and it can also be people will basically look at your research topic, and then it's just a question, and then the methodology you want to give some experiment is very hard. But in some area like multimedia or teaching, maybe you can use teaching method A, teaching method B, and then look at the effects on the student, right? And also if you are doing like mak-mak, bengkel, you're doing the welding, whatever, welding style A, welding style B, and then look at the quality, right, of the student work, for example, and then whatever it is, and then BBM, right, the Hamatu Mengajar, teaching aids number 1, teaching aids number 2, teaching aids number 3, right, and then see the effect, whether it affects the student performance or teachers way of teaching, for example. That one is easy, I think. But in my area, as I said earlier on, it's not that we don't want to do it, but I still don't see a good research question which tries to imply the experimental design in our in the research. Okay, now I'm talking about sampling because we don't have much time. Okay, if you look at my notes on page 22, sorry, I mentioned on the 4 probability sampling, which we will deal a lot if you are doing quantitative, simple random, systematic sampling, and then stratified sampling, and also cluster sampling. Okay, the one which is really rare is the systematic sampling. So we exclude the discussion. But simple random sampling is really is usual. It's very common among the students, be it PhD or master. Simple random, some literatures refer as the fishbowl sampling, meaning that you took the numbers of sample from the population using the what we call as randomizer. As you can see in page 23, the random number generator, right? Okay, so I want to generate 285 random integers between 1 and 1000. So my population is 1000. But if you see Cratchit Morgan, for example, Cratchit Morgan will give you the numbers. The table, the sample and population table, produced by Cratchit Morgan 1970. They have the indication of the numbers of population, and then they have the number of the sample that you need to draw. So let's say 1000, the number of the population is 1000, and then I want to draw 285. So I just use this random generator. You can get it from the address, and then you just click on go, for example, the 285 numbers will be given to you. So these are my random numbers or random respondents. So meaning that I click go, I get the numbers, and then I distribute the questionnaire to these numbers. So meaning that simple random, you need to have the list of respondents. You cannot do it without the list of respondents. You cannot do it without the list of organization. So meaning that in simple random, you need the list, because the person that you will give the questionnaires to, you should know about the persons. So meaning that you draw the number, it's person number 820. So you refer the list, and then you will be given giving the questionnaire to that person. So meaning that you have to list. For example, let's say I want to do some research on the students' preparation towards the their examination. For example, Form 5 students, right, in the public school. So Skudai area, for example, 5 school or 6 school in Skudai. Every school have like a 200 Form 5 times 5, 1,000. So 200 roughly in every school we have Form 5, and then we have 5 schools. 200 times 5, 1,000. So the population is 1,000. So the topic is, I consider topic as maybe the student preparation or student motivation maybe. So meaning that my population is 1,000. So now I refer to Cratchit Morgan. My population is 1,000. So how many sample that I need to draw? So let's say Cratchit Morgan say 285. So I draw the numbers, I get the number, and then I give the questionnaire. That's the simplest way of doing the random sampling using the simple random, or what we call as fishbowl sampling. But in some research question, we have the need to implement the research and to know whether some stratification in the population matters. For example, male and female. So let's say in the same research, let's say 1,000 students, and 60% are female, 40% are male students. So when I draw the number, I need to draw the number based on the ratio of the population. So male 40% and female 60%. So what I have to do is I have to draw 2 times. I have to draw 40% out of 285, and then I have to draw 60% out of 285. So I get the number. So 60% of 285. Draw the number from the female list. And then you have the male student list. And draw 40%. So yeah, if you go to the calculator, if you have the calculator with you, 40% out of 1,000, you don't need the calculator, right? How many students? So 400 students are male, 600 students are female, right?
Female.
But now you want to draw 285. So make sure from the 285, you draw only 40% male. So 40% times 285. So you get how many? 40%, 20, 10, 20, like 120, 100 something.
Mhm.
So go to the male list, you draw that number. How many percent? Somebody, Fu, can you help me? 40% out of 285. 40% out of 285. 114. So 114 should be drawn from the male list, male students list. And then 60% out of 285 from the woman. Go the,
5 times 114.
what's that? 100?
170.
171.
174.
Yeah, okay. So meaning that 174 will be from the ladies, and then 117 something from the guys list. So you have to draw 2 times. So for the stratified. So the stratified, normally we have a lot of stratified, like socio-economic status, for example, the poor family, the moderate family, moderate income family, and also we have the rich family, or maybe we can subdivide more into 4 or 5 based on the data that we have. So based on the data, maybe the existing data, or maybe the data that they collect. If the data is collected, maybe, so what we have to do is we have to put the range. So maybe what you have to do is you ask the question, what is your father, mother's income, or both income? So when you do the key in, you will definitely go to your certification that you create. Maybe 4, maybe 3. It's up to your importance of the research based on your research question. So the question should be, is the motivation reflected by the socioeconomic status in parentheses, maybe low economic income, and then moderate economic income, and then also high economic income of the parents. So meaning that if you have that kind of question, so you need the stratified sampling. That's the easiest way to do it. So normally you have the gender, normally you have the performance, for example, prestasi, the high performance teachers, high performance student, the low performer, the high performer, the moderate performer, and whatever stratification that you have in your data, you can come up with a question, and then you have to draw the samples from the population using the what we call as stratified sampling.
Okay.
So I think it's simple, right? So based on, I don't know, it's quite simple. You can read the Creswell for
Okay.
further clarification. But now it's cluster sampling. Okay, what is cluster sampling? Cluster sampling, normally we use cluster sampling when we don't want to do a lot of administration of questionnaire, for example. So meaning that once a number is selected, every individual will be chosen as the respondents. So for example, like this. For example, I want to do some research on TESOL teachers. Okay. So in Johor Bahru, we have 90 schools, sekolah menengah, primary schools. You have pretty much like a 5 to 10 number of teachers, teaching English in the school. But now you have 90 schools, right? So basically 5 to 10, let's say 7 or 8 times 90, 9 times 7, 63, pretty much like a 600 to 700 teachers altogether. But if you're doing simple random, your number will be scattered in 90 schools. So meaning that you have the way you have to administer your questionnaire will be a little hard, because you have to go to every schools, because the number that when you use the random generator, the number will be scattered, and most of the time every school will get a number or few numbers. So what we can do is we can use the so-called cluster sampling. Okay, what is cluster sampling? Cluster sampling means once the number is selected or randomized by the generator, we have to include all the samples or the teachers. So what we have to do is number the school from number 1 until number 90, because we have 90 schools in Johor Bahru district. So you number 1 until 90, and then you draw the number between 1 to 90. Okay, let's say you go into the random generator. Okay, pick one number between 1 to 90, and then number 5 come out. Number 5 came out from the generator. So you will take all the teachers in school number 5 as your samples. But is it enough? 285? No, it's not enough. 285. Pick one more number, and then the number can be maybe 21, for example. So the school 21 has 10 teachers, for example. So 10 plus 5 teachers from school number 5. Okay, 15. That's not enough. And then you have to again draw a number, and then you get maybe 8, maybe 7, until the number is equal to 285 or more than 285. Once it is surpassing the number 285, you stop. You don't draw any more numbers. So meaning that the cluster sampling, once you number the school from 1 to 90, and then you select each and every time one number, and once the number is selected, you include all the teachers in TESOL teachers in the schools.